happy to see you all here, and happy Valentine's Day week. For those of you who don't know me, I'm Lynn Vartan, the curator of the A.P.E.X series. And for the past 3 years, since I've been curating this series, we've sort of found this incredible annual event to do around Valentine's Day. Normally, for those of you who've been here before, we've done it in the Whiting Room, so we're really happy to be kind of graduating to do our Valentine's Day celebration of love here in the Great Hall. So each year around Valentine's Day, we want to really showcase an individual or a group in Utah who is helping and supporting our LGBTQ plus IA friends and family, all around the state of Utah. So that's what we're doing again for 2020. So we're so happy you're here to share this day with us. The way the format's going to work today is we have several members from Encircle who are going to be talking about their organization and their stories. And then we do have time reserved for Q&A, audience Q&A, which I know some of you love, and we don't often do here in this room. So get your questions ready. We'll probably have about 20 minutes or so for things you want to know or you want to ask about. But to tell us a little bit more about our group, we have our CPVA Senator Billy Klaus to introduce the group. Welcome, Billy.
Good afternoon and welcome to today's A.P.E.X event. Encircle seeks to deepen and enrich the conversation among communities of faith and LGBTQ plus people. By teaching individuals to love themselves and empowering families, Encircle helps cultivate an environment where LGBTQ plus individuals can thrive. Their programs and services meet people wherever they are in their lives with cultural competency and sensitivity, using community partnerships, best practices, and innovative techniques. Promising a place for community, a place for connection, a place for help, and a place for everyone, Encircle opens homes and provides programs, services, and reduced-cost therapy for LGBTQ plus individuals, parents, families, and the community. With homes in Salt Lake City and Provo, Encircle will be opening a St. George house in just over 2 months on April 18th. We really are in for a treat today, and please help me welcome our wonderful speakers, Stephanie Larson, Jacob Dunford, Jordan Scrow, and Dr. Jared Klunt.
There's the mic and there's the clicker.
Hi, my name's Stephanie Larson. Thank you for having us. It's a thrill to be here. Just so you know, SUU has a great reputation around the state. It's amazing how often you hear people talk about what a great school it is, and we're thrilled for the opportunity to come and tell you a little bit about Encircle. I hope that you don't mind if I tell you a little bit about my personal journey to kind of help you understand who Encircle is and what our approach is and what we hope to accomplish. I grew up in conservative Orem, Utah. I never left until I think I was 26 years old. I went to Brigham Young University for 7 years, where I was a family science major, and then I went to law school, and my goal was to defend the traditional family as I knew it. So I headed to Washington, D.C. as soon as I graduated, and I worked on Capitol Hill for a committee where we actually drafted legislation that was very much around that. That was in 1997. That same year, I met my husband, my now husband's uncle. His name was John Williams. He was from Salt Lake City. He grew up in Grace, Idaho, and he said that he went on an LDS mission hoping that he could pray away the gay. And when he got back from his mission, he went to Utah State, where he said he became suicidal because he was still gay and he didn't like who he was. So he said his older sister saved his life when she came and picked him up and brought him to Salt Lake City, where he came out to his family, and his family wrapped their arms around him and said, "John, you're amazing, you're wonderful, go be John." And John went on to be the first renovationist in Salt Lake City. He took large downtown buildings that the pioneers built and turned them into contemporary office spaces. He started 13 restaurants, the Gastronomy Restaurant Group. He started the Downtown Alliance. He became a leader in Salt Lake City as a gay man 50 years ago in Salt Lake City. So I moved back to Provo, and I start learning about the high suicide rate for Utah's youth, and realizing that our LGBTQ youth are 3 times more likely to take their lives than their straight peers. I forgot I had a clicker. I start thinking, this is crazy. Why is it that John was able to thrive 50 years ago as a gay man in Salt Lake, yet youth in my community are taking their lives? We should be moving forward on this issue, not backward. And I think a lot of what happened there was that John had a family who surrounded him in love, and he didn't spend years trying to repair relationships. And he was confident in who he was because they were confident in him. And to me, it felt like there was a lot of needless suffering going on in my community. So I call up John Williams and ask him if he would help me do something in Provo, where we've got 2 large universities, over 100,000 families, and not one resource for LGBTQ individuals. John says, sure, what are we going to do? And we had no idea. So we started thinking about, what about if it was a home, so that youth who maybe didn't feel at home at school or in their church or in their very own home had a place where they really felt at home and loved and respected just exactly how they were. And so I went looking for a house one day, and this is what I found across the street from the downtown Provo Temple. And it's on this cute hill. It's on this little hill. It's this darling house, and it's got 2 huge available signs. And so I thought, oh, if we could get that house, but there's no way. What are the chances? And I looked through the windows, and there's these rainbow stained glass windows that the polygamist who put in 120 years ago put in. And I thought, well, talk about traditional families. We should be able to fit in here perfectly. So we ended up buying the house and trying to figure out, how do we have a home across the street from a temple that is a place of love and a real resource to the community, where we're not angry about differences or so anyway, that's where Encircle evolved from. Our mission became to bring the family and community together to enable our LGBTQ youth to thrive. And so we opened this house up on Valentine's Day in 2017. Did we know if people would come? Not really, but all of a sudden the house filled with youths and families and a lot of love. And I will tell you, when you walk in an Encircle home, that's what you feel, is the love, happiness, laughter, and people coming together to love better and to get to know each other, and to make sure that the youth know how amazing they are. Because I believe if we love and support our LGBTQ youth, they will end up being the leaders of our communities. The youth that come to Encircle are some of the most amazing, creative, talented, kind, forgiving people I've ever known in my life. And if we don't love and nurture them the way we should, it is our communities that will be at the loss for that. So we hope to educate people. I need to go back and say, so 2 years later, we opened a house in Salt Lake because so many of the youth were coming an hour or 2 hours away. So this is the home in Salt Lake. It's downtown. It was built in 1891, just like the other home. And these guys are going to tell you what we do in the house. This is the house we're building in St. George. It's going to look a lot different than this in a few days, but this house isn't straight. That's one thing I love about it. If you look at it, it's just a little bit not straight. And so maybe that was the sign that this was the place for us in St. George. We're thrilled to be here. It's been really fun, the outpouring of love that we have seen from both St. George and Cedar City. So many people have driven to from Cedar City to meet with us and talk about, what are we doing, how can we help. Encircle is very volunteer-based. We would love to have you there. We do a lot of fun events and projects that they'll tell you about. But This is Encircle in St. George. It's just a few blocks from the temple and right off of, is it Bluff Street? Yes. So I'm going to introduce Jared Klunt. He is our clinical director. We stole him from BYU a while ago, and we're just really happy to have him in, and he'll tell you about what our therapy looks like.
So, as Stephanie alluded to, and as no doubt most people in the room are aware, the mental health of sexual and gender minorities is at a place where they are about 5 times more likely to even contemplate suicide, and are at a risk for basically every mental illness, more at risk for basically every mental illness we have a name for. And when you think about, as Stephanie's talking about some of the things that people often experience who are sexual and gender minorities, there's a real sense of exclusion, a sense of marginalization. It's understandable that that creates some difficulties. And so a big part of Encircle's mission is to help people develop past those or be able to handle those difficulties in their lives. And therapy is a big part of that. So as a psychologist, obviously what I'm focused on is mental health. And that's really our central focus. You know, the slogan of Encircle is no sides, only love. And as a clinician, I think all ethical clinicians would have that as their goal as well. We're not here to say, oh, you need to do this with your life or need to do that with your life. You need to go to this organization or leave this organization. We're here to say, how can you be healthy? And what does that look like for you? And to create a space where the person in the room gets to decide that based on what's meaningful to them. I talk a lot about mental illness, again, that's sort of my discipline. Additionally, part of why we have therapy is, as Stephanie mentioned, our goal is to help people thrive. And so once people come out of some deep depression or difficulties with anxiety or suicidality, what we then find is sexual and gender minorities are incredibly resilient. And again, if you think about people who have felt ostracized or marginalized by their community, they have developed skills to be able to stand up for themselves. And our goal is to fuel those things, right? We're not here, I think it's really easy to talk, and again, this is some of my bias as a psychologist, but we often talk about mental illness as sort of these weaknesses. And one of the great things about Encircle is there are concerns that we want to work on, but holy cow, are there so many strengths. And that's really what we can focus on. And Jordan's going to talk about a lot of the programs we do to connect with that. But we focus on some very specific things. So it's not just about, okay, can I not be depressed? It's how can I build the life that I want? How can I be the kind of person I want to be in the healthiest way possible? How can I have the kinds of relationships that maybe I kind of believe I can't even have, or I don't know how to find or build? Those are all parts of a thriving life. And that's really what our focus is. And one of the great things about Encircle, so we have a lot of really generous donors who help subsidize the cost of therapy. Therapists are expensive, and mental health is often an expensive thing to pay for. And we are really lucky that a big part of our mission is to help subsidize those costs. And we have really generous donors that make it so most of the people that come and see us are paying under $25 a session. And we really want it to be something where you can come in and get help and turn your life into what you want it to be. And so it's not just, I've been talking a lot about sexual and gender minority individuals. It's also for the families and their friends and spouses and partners. The goal is to have the whole community be able to be a support structure. And so we do work with couples. We do work with families. Parents will come in and say, I don't know how to respond to this. I'm feeling really hopeless or really afraid because I don't know what to do. And our therapists are trained to work with them. And so anyway, it really is this idea of as we strengthen our queer youth, we can strengthen the community, and the community is going to be so much better for it. And therapy is just one small part of that. Jordan, who's coming up next, is our program director. She's going to talk about some of the other amazing things. And what's great about Encircle is I may have a client in my office and they say, oh, I don't know where to go to get friends. And I'm like, well, you just got to go downstairs because Jordan has set up some amazing programs and she's going to talk about those right now.
Hi. How's everyone doing? Thumbs up, thumbs up. In the back, thumbs up. Perfect. Okay. I'm Jordan. I'm the Chief Program Officer here at Encircle. I grew up in Vegas, so not like too far from here. I actually came to Cedar City all the time with my family, and I was driving past some soccer fields on our way here, and I was like, whoa, I have played on those fields forever. So it's kind of like familiar. I'm glad to be here today. I went to school at BYU Provo. And then my final semester there, I went to an event and I saw Stephanie speak. And she got on the stage and she was like, I'm going to start an LGBTQ resource center in Provo, Utah. And I looked at my wife and I'm like, oh, no way. Really? That's possible. Okay. So then we go to Pride and I see Stephanie. I'm like, wow, she did it. This is so cool. So then I just basically followed her around until she hired me. So here we are. So I'm just really excited to share with you what we do, because I feel like when I was at BYU, really alone and closeted, what we do every day would have really helped me, and it would have helped my family. And I'm reminded of that when I see a younger version of myself every time I go to Encircle. So, okay, personal rant over. So I'm going to talk to you about our friendship circles, some of our programs. We have friendship circles every single week for different demographics and ages and orientations, gender and sexual orientations as well. So the idea here is that they're just unstructured support groups. You don't have to commit to coming every single week. You can come once a month. You can come all the time. It's really kind of this space of safety where you get to connect with just other people who get it, who get you, who get what you're going through. So I would really encourage you to kind of check out our website and look at all of the different friendship circles that we offer. Now for our programs. So I'm going to buzz through all of the programs that we have. The main takeaways, I would just want you to know this. We offer and develop content for you based off of what you tell us that you're wanting and that you're needing. Our goals and our outcomes here are to ensure that you leave Encircle feeling connected, that you feel like you get to be your full self, that you feel authentic, and that you find value in what you come to. Whether that's an art night or a music night, which isn't for me because I have a horrible tone in my voice, but I would love to go to the writing workshop because I love to write. And it makes it so that I can connect with myself and the other people in the room who are vulnerable and share their writing with me. So I would really, really encourage you to get involved, whether as a facilitator of a friendship circle, or if you're a local artist and you want to share your craft with our youth. We really want people to get involved in whatever way they can. We also offer parent programs. One of them is called Lunch with Lisa. The other one is called Connect. So this is for parents and families and allies who want to come to the table and connect with other people who, again, have just been through it and they get it. And it's that space of safety to really share what you're thinking and what you're feeling without any type of judgment. We have people come of all different backgrounds. We don't want you to leave your religion at the door. We don't want you to leave your identity or whatever it is. We just want you fully you, and that goes for every single person who comes. So I am going to turn it over to our Chief Operating Officer, Jacob Dunford, and then I'm happy to answer more questions if you have them at the end.
Hey everyone. So I want to kind of understand who I'm talking to. And before I finish my little speech here, I want you to know what you can do today to kind of help Encircle move forward and also make Cedar City a better place to be an LGBTQ individual. So to help me understand that, I'm going to ask a question. I'm going to preface this by saying, if you're not comfortable, you do not need to participate in this activity. But I want to know if the LGBTQ individuals in the audience, if you're comfortable, would you please stand? Now keep standing. If you're a parent of an LGBTQ child, would you please stand? If you're an ally of the LGBTQ community, please stand. if you're here to learn how you can do better, please stand. Thank you, everybody. You can sit down. I think what we can learn from that exercise is that everybody in this room is here to learn what they can do. We have questions, and we need some answers. When I was at BYU, I was there for about a year and a half, came home, and me and my mom shared a running playlist. You know, I ran the St. George Marathon, and you know, we trained together. And we would add songs to our playlist, and she's on her run at home in San Diego, and a song comes on that I had added, by mistake, called "Everyone Is Gay." And by the way, I'm not out. And so I guess she's on her run, and the "Everyone Is Gay" song comes on, and she says she starts crying, and she goes, "Jacob's gay." And then she comes home. I happen to be home in between semesters. I'm just minding my own business. She comes in, "We need to talk." So we go upstairs. We're in her room. She's blow drying her hair, full blast. I can barely hear her. And she finally turns it off, and she looks at me, and she says, "Son, if you're gay, I need you to tell me. Because I've been reading online about suicide, depression, isolation, and loneliness, and I want to be there for you." Of course, I start crying, which was kind of an admission in itself. And I say, "Mom, I'm not gay." I was like, "I just like guys. But I'm not gay." If you know what I mean, you know, that cognitive dissonance, you know what I mean? I lived in that period for a long time. And so I was there, and I just was trying to come to terms with myself because I wanted what my parents had. You fast forward another week, I'm sitting at dinner with my mom and my dad. My dad, big cop guy, like this big. And he's ripped. Opposite of me. And my dad, you know, he wasn't really an emotional guy, but we're sitting at dinner, and he says, "Why do you keep crying all the time?" He's like, "We love you. We support you." And I said, "Dad, I just want what you have. I want the Cadillac Escalade. I want the eternal family. I want a wife. I want kids. And I don't want it to be so hard. Why does it have to be so hard to be LGBTQ?" I'm sitting there and I'm crying, and he grabs my hand, and this was a big deal. It changed my life forever because it came from him. And we're sitting in this restaurant, and he goes, "If you're not going to heaven, I'm not going either." And he said, "There's not a version of heaven that doesn't have my LGBTQ community in it." That's Encircle's message. The LGBTQ folks who stood up today, you are our family. The allies who stood up, you are our family. And there's not a version of heaven that doesn't have this whole room in it. Amen, amen? So I want to tell you a little bit about how you can change your community today. One thing is you can get out your phone right now. If you love me, get out your phone. And I need you to put April 18th in your calendar. And you're going to get with some friends, and you're going to head down to the grand opening of the Encircle St. George house. It's at 11 o'clock. We'll all be there. And then a lot of other folks too. I want you to come and celebrate opening that house with us. And bring a few friends if you can. And carpool. Environment. But then I would like for you to get onto, there's one number I want you to save to your phone. If you don't already have it, just Google the Trevor Project suicide hotline number. And you can get that online. It's text or call. I would save it to your phone. Doesn't matter who you are in this room. And if you run into somebody who's having a hard time and is dealing with depression, isolation, suicide, You give them that contact. You airdrop it, you message it, you send it. And you say, hey, this is something that's available right now. And then you also say, I just went to the Encircle St. George House opening, which is just like a minute down the road, and we can head down there and find community and connection. There's events that go on every night, and there's also monthly events that are open to the community. So have those in your back pocket. I'd say the last thing, the most important, is Encircle doesn't need to come to this university, doesn't need to go to a city, it doesn't need to go somewhere in order for the same principles to exist. Any one of you could turn your apartment, condo, house into an Encircle. What we do is not revolutionary. So open up your house and invite people in. And make that same standard that my parents taught me at that restaurant, which is there's not a version of heaven that doesn't have every single one of you in it. And every single one of you is welcome in my home, my apartment. And start building that community here today, right now. Because that's what we need. We need more community. Thank you.
Okay, so we have lots of time for questions and to kind of keep the conversation going. I have another mic, which maybe we can put over kind of for you two to share and all that. And maybe as you guys are getting your questions going, and we have Tony and Yuri are going to be walking around with mics. To start out, I would love to just hear a bit more about the programs. Like, I know there's art events, music events, writing events, and these look so interesting. So Jordan, do you mind telling me, I think it would be Jordan to tell us a little bit more about some of those specifics.
Right. Okay, so every night at 6:30 p.m. at every house, at each, like, across what we do, at 6:30 there are different programs, right? So on Mondays we have what's called Encircle Live. And this is a speaking series or panel or workshop. It's really like planned by the community for the community. So we focus on a number of different topics. Sometimes it's educational, sometimes it's more intimate with someone sharing their story of how they overcame XYZ. So that's a newer program. It's doing really well. We're excited about it just because we have so many different folks involved in the planning of it. And then Tuesdays we have our writing, which is Blue Sky. It's really just like an open creative workshop. It's led by different writing professors at each house. And we have a writing professor from Dixie, actually, who will be doing it in St. George. And then that's also the same day as our Lunch with Lisa for parents, and then Connect, which is the other program for parents and friends and family members of LGBTQ people. And that's, again, where we have some guest speakers come in. We utilize segments from our Encircle series book, and you can go look at that online if you would like, or I'll send everyone in this room a copy because you should all read it. So we do that, and then Wednesdays are our art nights. That's also the same day that we have our youth friendship circles. So Wednesdays are nuts and loud, but fun. And then on Thursdays, we have our music night, and we have different musicians and bands come in and perform and play with all of the youth and families in the whole community. Their last song of the night in Provo is Under the Sea. I don't know why. And then Fridays, we really reserve for different community events. So less like weekly things. We do a lot of GSA outreach with middle schools and high schools. We also do activities with the college clubs, like the Queer Resource Centers at BYU, UVU, the U, Westminster, at Dixie. We would obviously hope to do something with the club here on campus, and you bring all of your friends and family if you want, and we just, Encircle buys the pizza, and we have an awesome time. So, does that work?
Yeah, that's so cool.
Okay.
Thank you so much. And
yeah.
I just also wanted to mention the website is amazing, and you've spent so much time, not just with the programs, but there are many other resources, lots of book titles available, this kind of thing on the website. So I definitely check it out. I also have one more question about the psychological services and therapy services. How, if there's somebody in the audience who's interested in, trying to get involved with those and really get help that way, what's the process like?
Yeah, Awesome question. So, I meant to mention that. So it's very simple. All of our online, the first session is totally free. It's a 30-minute consultation with one of our clinicians to come in and talk about what's going to be most helpful. And maybe you just need to know, like, what are the resources available? Or maybe you're like, hey, this is a bit of a drive. Do you know people elsewhere that can be helpful? Or maybe it's, I really need therapy and I need it right now. But that first half an hour session is just for you to sit down with one of our clinicians and talk about that. You can sign up for that on our website for the therapy, which you can, so if you go, the main website is encircletogether.org. Right? Hopefully very easy to remember. And right at the top, we have a link to the therapy page, which is encircletherapy.org. We're really imaginative with our URLs. And right there on the main page, it says book a session. It's the very first thing you can see. You click that, it will show you all of our clinicians. It has pictures and bios of each of us. And then there's a button that you can pick. And usually we have openings within a couple of weeks. It sort of fluctuates, especially at the houses that are near universities. It seems to fluctuate by semester, and towards the end of the semester, maybe we're pushed out a couple of weeks. But that first session is free. So it's encircletherapy.org. There's a button right there. The very first thing on the page says book a session, and it'll take you to our online scheduler. It's very, very simple.
Can I add something? I've just been listening as we've been talking a lot about suicide, ideation, depression, loneliness. I want to make it clear that people who are LGBTQ are not more depressed or suicidal by nature. They don't have more mental health problems because of that. I believe the only reason we see higher rates of that in the LGBTQ community is because the messages that communities send our youth and our LGBTQ family members. That is our responsibility to change. And that is what Encircle, that's my main focus, is for us to educate people. Because once you understand that we're all the same with some unique parts of us, I think once people are educated, it's game over, right? And so that's what I want to do. I want to make it so that when a child maybe is 12 and realizes, I think I'm lesbian, great. You know, there's no shame. So please know that, you know, we don't feel like people have mental health issues because of that. It is our community's doing, and we want to alleviate that. So.
Thank you, yeah. And there are resources also outside on the table. They have brought a lot of things. So after the event, if you want to pick up some brochures or some things with the website on it, you can definitely get that there. Okay, so what questions might we have? Is there anything you would like to know? Of course, you know me, I can ask questions like forever, but we want to hear from you. If there's anything you want to ask about or anything you'd like to talk about. Okay, I'll start another one then while you're thinking. Several people have asked me what volunteer possibilities might be available or donation possibilities. What kinds of volunteer opportunities are there to work with Encircle?
So volunteering, you can get on the website, sign up. You can go once a month, once a day, twice a day, once a year. Up to you. How much you want to help out. I'd say probably the coolest part of going to Encircle is just show up Monday through Friday from 2 to 8, walk in the door, and just get a tour and kind of see what the vibe is, and then learn how to get involved. And if you want to donate monthly, I'm not a person who can give $1 million to help pay for all this therapy Jared's doing. But I am someone who can give $35, or I could give 10. And so the best way for me to sign up usually, you know, as an individual to help another organization, you can do this with Encircle, is by giving $5, $10, $20 a month. And you can select which house you want your money to go to. So you could go on and hit St. George and do $5 a month. And that money would all go directly to that house. And then you get a monthly report on how we're spending it.
Oh, that's so cool. Thank you. So you can sign up for donation and volunteering directly on the website.
Right. One reason that we do the volunteer program is because we do volunteer trainings. And I think that during that volunteer training, when we teach about cultural competency and we ask people, why are you here? Why would you want to be an Encircle volunteer? And maybe someone who's completely new to this hears the other stories and gets to learn, then they're forever different once they leave that volunteer training. And we believe that better conversations at Encircle lead to better conversations in the community. So people are more educated. They're more able to step in and say, hey, wait a minute, what you just said was not actually quite correct, but this might be more accurate. So that's a lot of it. Our volunteer piece is to help take that back out into the community, right, the education. And so if you do have family members who maybe you would like them to better understand, or you have friends who you would like to better understand, I think saying maybe you should go and volunteer there. And the other thing that I think is great is once the volunteers show up and they meet the youth, they're like, wow, why would I have ever felt differently about this, right? So that's kind of a little bit more about why we think volunteering is so important.
Cool. So it sounds like all of the houses are pretty active from, like you said, 2 to 8, and you can kind of just come in and get a tour and see what's going on, and then there'll be either something starting in the evening, and it's a place to be, it sounds like. And St. George will kind of have the same schedule as the northern groups, it sounds like. Yeah, is that accurate? Cool. Okay, any questions? Yes, we have one up here. Tony can come on and grab the mic. Yeah. Awesome, thank you for being our first question, woohoo!
No problem. So I just want to say thank you for bringing Encircle to St. George, because I'm actually born and raised in St. George. The political landscape of St. George about 5 to 10 years ago was such a different place. And so it's just crazy for me as someone who was born and raised there to see an LGBTQ resource center come there, because it was, I'm not gonna lie, it was pretty rough living in St. George and being openly gay. Just a little bit of context for that, when I was in high school, you really could not be out and be safe, especially if you were trans or gay. And so I actually had to leave the public high school setting so I could be safe and be out. So I attended Tuacahn High School for the Performing Arts. At the time, it was one of the few high schools that would allow same-sex couples to actually go to prom and to go have these experiences that were robbed of so many other queer youth. And so I just want to thank you so much for bringing Encircle. My question was, I'm a senior here at SUU, and I'm really curious on how I can become an intern for the St. George location.
Done, yeah, you're hired. I'll let Jordan speak to that, but first, can I say something back to you? Thank you for being so brave. I have to say, from my personal perspective, I was 40 years old before I dared own who I am. And I watch 15-year-old, 12-year-old, 16-year-old people who are so brave and able to say, this is who I am. And I cannot imagine where you're going to be when you're my age. And the change that we're seeing in St. George, you would have helped start. We will say we have had the warmest reception in St. George. It has been thrilling. We were kind of like, are we doing this too soon in St. George? And we'll have an event and 100 people show up, each time we do it. And so thank you for leading the way.
Oh, yeah. You're an intern. It's done. Done deal. Signed, delivered.
Welcome to the family.
You'll work just with our program manager. Her name's Julie in St. George, and there's like a million different opportunities for you. You could work specifically with a program. You could work more with Jacob on his side and do media and ops type stuff, or I'm swimming in data, so there's that type of thing. The possibilities are endless, so just come see me after.
Don't we have a form online?
Yep, you can go read more. I should have said that. On our website, there's just if you scroll to the bottom on the footer, it just says intern. You can click that.
Yeah, we have another question right next door. Thank you for asking, yay.
I was just, wow. I was just curious about the extent to which Encircle is politically involved, if it is at all. I asked this just lately. There's been a lot of bills trying to be passed that are very anti-trans and very targeted against trans youth. And I, as a trans person, when I see that, I see government officials trying to make people like me suffer. And I don't know what to do when I see these things, because it feels like a world trying to impose its power on people like me in having to face the same pains that I've had to face. And I don't know what to do, and I was wondering what Encircle does in reaction to this sort of stuff.
We are not able to lobby, but what we do is the legislator who presented that bill, I was able to sit down with him probably 4 times beforehand and beg him, do not run this bill. This will hurt people. You don't understand much about the issue. We were able to help talk with the governor and let him know what was, so behind the scenes, what we are able to do is tell our stories. We're able to say, this is what we're seeing at Encircle. This is the pain our youth are feeling because of what is going on in the media, what's being discussed. We're able to put parents in front of them. And so I think having that resource is helping to educate and protect.
I think another big part of our mission is, and the slogan that we talk about of no sides, only love, I think really allows legislators who may sort of be on one side feel safe to invite us to do hopefully some education. And sometimes we're able to help change their mind and sometimes we're not. But that really is a part of our, so Stephanie mentioned we're a 501c3, we don't lobby, but we do try to remain a resource for and an advocate for in the ways that we can. For these kinds of, and especially as Stephanie's mentioning, we can talk very clearly about, and Jordan keeps gathering data about, here's what we're seeing, here's why this is problematic, here's some pieces that maybe you aren't aware of that we can help bring to light.
And I'll just point out, I've worked for Stephanie for a minute, like 3-4 years, and I'm going to tell you, she is not going to rest. She goes up to the Capitol anytime she can get in a meeting, and she's able to use her privilege as an ally to get into doors that LGBTQ folks won't be welcomed into. And she gets in there and she advocates for folks like us. And she's not going to rest until there's equality in the LGBTQ community. So just know that not only is Stephanie in your corner, but all of Encircle.
So kind of a follow-up to that, do you have any advice that you can offer to ways for people to perhaps get politically involved if they want to? Is that any advice that you feel comfortable giving? Is there anything that you would recommend based on your knowledge of this area and the state and all that?
I would highly recommend Equality Utah. Equality Utah has accomplished things in our state that more liberal states haven't accomplished. They do an excellent job. I think working with them, interning with them, spending a summer up with them, or just getting involved as issues come up is a great way to learn personally and also to make a difference, because Utah's doing really well for who we are, too. In some, right.
Well, that's actually, I'm sure, a question on some people's mind. So you feel that Utah's doing all right in some ways?
Well, we passed more bills than a lot of states with protections. I think we also, I don't know, I think some of the discussions we hear are so painful and really not knowledgeable. Like, by way of example, we're sitting with a group of youth and we're talking about self-love and connecting with yourself and not listening to those voices that tell you otherwise. And this girl raises her hand and she's like, I try so hard to be okay with who I am, but when I'm hearing in the media people debating my worth or if I'm okay or if what I'm doing is okay, it's really hard. And that's what hurts me so much, is that conversation shouldn't even be being had. But I think that we're learning from the pain from those painful conversations. I think at least we're having them right now. But for me, I just go, Since the beginning of time, there have been LGBTQ people in this world. Until the end of the time, there will be. They're special, they're unique, or they're not the majority, let's say that. Why would we shame them? Why don't we celebrate and cheer the uniqueness and honor who they are? And I think we can get there through education and advocacy and people learning and saying some of our old rhetoric is just wrong.
And any other comments on that, or because
Amen.
All right. One other question that comes up quite a bit is parents, and we may have some parents in the room who may have some questions of their own that they're dealing with and may not be comfortable asking. And do you have any advice for parents, ways to proceed, resources, things to do, things to think about?
Well, first, for all of the parents who are here, I just want to say thank you, because it's really brave if you're really new to this experience. It's brave to just show up and sit in the room and listen. That's something that my mom doesn't give me, so that's huge. I really am grateful that you're here, whoever you are. I think in terms of advice, it's hard because every person's experience is so different, right? I think the best thing that Encircle offers, for parents and for everyone that comes, honestly, is just a network of people who get you, who are sitting with you and they're listening to you and they're hearing what you're saying. And, if you're crying, they're crying. And then the next time someone else will be crying and you're going to say, you can do this because I made it through. And, it's more about just showing up to the table and being willing to just listen and hear. And then, beyond that, we offer a ton of different pamphlets and resources. And I mean, Jared can speak to the therapy that he does with parents and families. But, I really just think showing up is the hardest part a lot of the times. I mean, even for queer people, that's really difficult to do. So.
Yeah, I will say, I think I really want to echo what Jordan's saying, right? And there's so, when I meet with parents, there's so much fear of loss. And it's the loss of maybe the future they thought that their child would have, or the fears of what their future will look like. They're not ignorant of some of the statistics about mental health or those concerns. There's so much fear for parents, and that fear comes from a place of love. Most often, that's really what parents want. And a fear is I don't know how to do this. I don't know what this looks like. And to speak sort of broadly, and I agree with Jordan, advice is difficult, and anytime someone's giving you advice, be careful with that. But as a therapist, the research would show that the most effective things that parents can do are pretty basic, I love you. I don't know what this is going to look like, but I'm here. And kind of Jacob talking about his own experience, really that's in a lot of ways ideal to be able to say, hey, you know what, I may have said stuff in the past, I'm trying to figure this out, but when all is said and done, I'm in your corner. Those messages are really powerful, and it's okay to not know how to respond. And that's really painful. Our species, we don't like ambiguity. That's not something that we really enjoy. And so to be able to say, it's okay that I don't know, I'm going to keep working on it, but bottom line is, I love you, I want to help, I want us to get through this together.
Can I say one more thing? Part of the reason I wanted to do Encircle is because I think that as humans, there's an innate part of us that cares what our parents think about us. 48 years old, I still care what my parents think of me. It's an interesting thing that how much that matters to us as humans. And if I guess just the reminder to parents who might be in the room, you matter to your child. Your support matters to them. It helps them move forward when they feel your love or that you're working to understand them and you appreciate who they are. It's I think it's something that holds us back when we don't have that. It helps us from moving forward. And it was the thing that I recognized in John Williams, that he didn't spend years trying to repair a relationship with his mother. He turned around, he developed his talents and moved forward and made the world a better place. So.
And it sounds like there are therapy opportunities for parents available through
Yes,
Encircle.
absolutely.
Great. Other questions? Yes, we've got one here. We've got the mic around somewhere. Yeah. Cool.
Hi. Would you guys look to establish houses outside of Utah? Yeah.
Working on it.
Absolutely.
Okay, that's all.
Do you have any suggestions?
Well, I'm from Washington State, and I'm the Seattle area, which it's a very different culture than here, and so I'd say that wouldn't be my top priority. But look, I've also been over to the south, and maybe more in the southern states. We could use some places like this. So, yeah, that's all.
And Encircle, you said the year that you began was, remind me again the year?
2017.
2017, and now already 2020, you've expanded and looking to states outside. That sounds like huge growth.
I think that we're seeing, what we see in those houses is love, beautiful people, beautiful experiences, and communities having these conversations better. So we're going to keep pushing as hard as we can, because until it doesn't, as long as it's helping, we feel like we've got something to offer.
Cool. Other questions? Yes, we've got one back there. Yay!
So I actually used to go to the Provo house. And
cool.
I recommend anybody that wants to go to Encircle, go to the St. George one, because it's going to be awesome. But do you guys have any plans for bringing an Encircle either house or just office area up north to Cedar area? Just because I know that there's a lot of people here that don't have access there.
Well, I think the best way for us to open up a satellite location is for the university to call. They just need to call and give us a space. Then we're all in. So, come talk to me after. We'll make it happen.
On that, we are working on a home in Logan, and part of the reason why we're doing that is because Utah State initiated us coming there. And the neat thing with being connected with the university, we think, is that it would allow us to work on research together, give internship opportunities, clinical hours for students. There's so many places that we can work together to do a lot more. And so, yeah, just bug your university.
Awesome, thank you. Any other questions to get going? I have others I can ask. So a question, sometimes people ask for the allies in the room, do you have any thoughts or ideas for allies to offer the best support that they can and the most loving support? Is there any best practices or anything that you see, or any cautions either that, do you have any recommendations for that group?
So I'm obviously very biased as a psychologist, but I think it's easy. We want to be able to do something and to check something off a list. And I would obviously want to hear from what my colleagues think, but I think one of the biggest things you can do is listen and just try to let people know, hey, I'm here if you want to talk. It seems like you're struggling with stuff, and no matter what, I'm here for you, or I'm in your corner. I think, again, as a psychologist, I think a big part of what makes therapy effective is I feel safe to share what I'm actually thinking and feeling. And you don't have to be a psychologist to do that.
I'd say yesterday I was at the house, and they're doing construction. We pulled up, and there was 50,000 people there, putting in nails and whatever they do. And there was these folks there, and he was talking to Stephanie about the roof. I don't know if he was the roof guy, but they all kind of look the same to me. But she kind of walked away, and I'm just ending up standing next to him, and we're both kind of silently awkward, just staring at the house. And he goes, "Do you work here?" And I'm like, "Yeah." And he goes, and I'm like, "Do you know what we do here?" And he goes, "Kind of." And he goes, "I really like your mission." I said, "Well, what?" And he goes, "The no sides, only love." And then he starts crying.
Wow.
And I'm like, "Roof guy's crying." And he's standing there and he's crying. And like, I say, well, we offer therapy and programs and friendship circles for the LGBTQ community, youth, young adults, parents, families. And he goes, I need to tell you that my best friend in the whole world was in construction with me, and he transitioned a year ago. And I lost him. And he says, I think it's my job to show up, to listen, in honor of my best friend. And he said, I'm grateful that I'm a part of this project. And it was just a really powerful moment where I said, that's an ally. He doesn't know, he's a roof guy, but he knows that he wants to do something, you know, and that it started from that place.
Can I tell a quick story that is a Jake story, but I'm going to tell a story. So the guy who's the general contractor on the house in St. George, his name's John Bassett. He's about 70, retired. He took on this job just for an extra job, and he told us in the beginning, well, I spent my career building temples and hospitals. And I don't know much about the LGBTQ community. I don't know if he was a little nervous taking on the project, what he was going to get. He went up to Jacob one day and said, this will be the most important building I've ever built. And the reason why he said that is because of these two right here and their interactions with him and them getting to know him and him having someone who's gay and lesbian in his life and him realizing we're all the same and they're lovely and some of the best people I've ever met, right? And so that's what I think you all have the opportunity and are doing, is changing the conversations. He then asked Jordan if he could be on the board. And we're like, huh? And he said, well, my two liberal daughters just love that I'm doing this. And so I love that, you know, that it just helps us all come together sometimes in our differences. So anyway, that's my little story.
I love it. That's great. I love all the stories. Well, there will be time to mix and mingle in the lobby as well. But as we close up, is there anything that we haven't touched on or anything that you would like to share that we haven't yet hit, or anything else that you want us to know about the organization?
Just come volunteer. It's so important for the younger youth to be able to see college-age students and say, I can be like them someday. I'm going to be fine. Because I think sometimes what happens is if the youth have heard things about who they are that aren't positive, they feel shame for who they are. They show up at the house, they look around and they go, oh, if I'm like them or them or them, I'm gonna be just fine. They find community again. Please come and be their role models and help them through what might be a difficult period. And we can shorten that period of time that's difficult for them. And so they can be where you guys are, so.
Thank you. Well, we'll love to continue the conversation outside. They will be on the radio with me later today, so that conversation will go. And there are a lot of materials out on the table, so please stop by, grab some things, ask some more questions, and thank you all for coming. Happy Valentine's Day.